Welcome to a new episode of the UEFA Take Care podcast, where we explore the power of football to shape healthier, happier lives on and off the pitch. Today, we're turning our attention to one of the most important conversations of our time: mental health. Across Europe and beyond, more and more children and teenagers are struggling with anxiety, loneliness, stress, and the pressures of modern life. All of this, of course, amplified by social media, academic demands, and a world that often feels uncertain. But among these challenges, sport, especially football, can offer something powerful: connection, structure, joy, and purpose. Whether it's the feeling of being part of a team or simply getting out of the house for a pickup game with friends, football has a unique ability to support mental well-being. That is the focus of today's episode, and to give us expert insight on the topic of mental health, I'm delighted to be joined by Eleftheria Aravidou from Terre des Hommes, a non-profit organization which works to protect the rights of children worldwide, focusing on safeguarding them from exploitation, violence, and abuse, while promoting their access to education, health, and a safe environment as well. Eleftheria, thanks for joining us. You've been with Terre des Hommes for 8 years now. You've been part of the joint efforts with UEFA to develop a Europe-wide child safeguarding program aimed at providing a safe and positive environment for all children and young people who play football. You provide training and consultation to professionals as part of the process. Great to have you on here. I wanted to start really with the basics, and that's really an opening question of what exactly is the reason, in your opinion, why mental health is such an important issue today, especially considering the younger generations.
First of all, Pedro, thank you for having me and starting this conversation around the important topic of mental health. So the question here, if trying to rephrase it a bit, should be why you should care about our mental health, especially nowadays. And indeed, the research and the scientific evidence are alarming. So mental health issues are increasingly recognized as a global concern. The rates of anxiety, of stress, or depression are rising up. So globally, most people have been feeling stressed up to a point that this has a serious impact in their life. And let alone that many people in recent research cite mental health as their main health issue that their nation is facing. And the same applies for young people and adolescents, as common mental disorders actually emerge by the mid-teens. So mental health is a global concern nowadays, and there are key and global threats actually to mental health that are structural stressors, and that means they kind of prevent people for promoting their mental health. So many people, their mental health can be undermined. So these key stressors could be economic crisis, or growing climate crisis and public health emergency, or some modern social pressures like digital life. People were overusing social media. We are kind of obsessed with getting online validation, and this also leads to feeling more isolated and loneliness, also due to urbanization. And let alone the high competitive environments we are living, we are struggling to be flawless. There is this constant pressure of being perfect socially and succeed professionally and personally. So actually, there have been some shifts lately in the social landscape, and they add on the pressure that people feel. So this makes mental health issues a really alarming concern. Of course, mental health issues have always existed. They will always there. But we can say that compared to past generation, things are getting worse. But the good thing, because we also need to mention the positive thing, is that there is a lot of awareness around mental health. So something that once had been ignored, now it's been recognized as a problem, is treated as such. People are reaching out more for help. That means they have more access to mental health services.
There's no question that, at least in my generation, the topic of mental health, when I was growing up, was very much a taboo. And it is positive that there is more awareness, that people are discussing this issue as a serious issue. And the obviously negative part of it is that it does seem to be more of a problem for today's youth. And we'll get into that issue a little bit later, and what can be done to help young people and children who have a challenge to overcome mental health issues. But as we start kind of the definition of our conversation and the positioning of our conversation, I wanted to ask, according to you, what is a good mental health? So what is a good scenario, a positive scenario of someone who is balanced from a mental health perspective?
This is a really good foundation to start off our conversation. Actually, this is a challenging question, because to define and introduce mental health, and especially good mental health, in a way that is culturally sensitive, it's understandable and makes sense for everyone, is a bit challenging. But let's begin with the fact that mental health is an integral part of health. So there is no health without mental health. And if we're talking about being in a good mental health state, we are actually referring to being able to connect with other people. I mean, making positive relationships, make contributions to our community, empathize with other people. It means that we're able to function, which means earn our living, learn new skills. It means that we're able to cope, translating into dealing with distressful situation, adapting and changing new ideas, making complex choices, and also manage our emotions. But on top of that, for me, good mental health means that we can, besides functioning and coping, it's about thriving, progressing, becoming better, improvement. I mean, it's what we call this transformative resilience, meaning that despite the difficult situations that a person might experience, he or she can still cope properly and progress, meaning that the person, the individual, is able to use all their capacities to their best. I need to highlight one thing about mental health, that mental health is not a binary state. So we are not either mentally ill or mentally healthy. Mental health exists on a continuum, with experiences ranging from a good state of mental health to debilitating states of great pain or emotional suffering. So a person that is being challenged by mental health conditions, he or she can still experience some high levels of mental health, and vice versa. So good mental health is not defined by the presence or the absence of a mental health difficulty.
That's very interesting, Eleftheria. Of course, we know that there are various tools that all of us can utilize to make sure that we look after our physical health and our mental health. It would be fair to say that practicing sports, being active, is certainly one of them. Talk to me about the importance of sport, of the movement of the body, of being able to interact with socially with other people when it comes to playing sports and playing football in this case. And do you have any good examples that you can share from clubs or teams that are really helping the mental health of the youth these days?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure, nothing can go wrong with our mental health where we are engaged in any type of physical activity, let alone football that has evidence-based data that can be really helpful for people with mental health challenges. Actually, physical activity positively impacts our mental health by releasing these feel-good hormones. So we feel less frustrated, our stress is reduced, our mood is a natural boost of our mood, we have less mental fatigue, and we have this sense of achievement that we're doing something good. And it also motivates us to do more healthy choices in terms of eating well and sleeping well. There is a variety of research and systematic reviews that highlight that regular participation in sports and commitment consistent engagement in sports is related with some positive social skills like having a higher self-esteem, better social skills, fewer depressive symptoms. Especially for young people, they help them develop healthy self-images and project them positively in the future. And if we are talking about football, grassroots football showcases the importance of sports club and the engagement of children, so they can develop holistically, not only physically but mentally and socially. I mean, grassroots football provides a context for the children to develop important skills like communication, like teamwork, like leadership skills, or learning how to cope with difficulties and to work with each other. Let alone that when a young person is engaged in grassroots football, it also helps them build the social cohesion because they are working with the community towards a collaborative goal. And let me also tell you a very interesting data evidence that we have from research, because over the last decades or years, football has attracted a lot of attention. It's a very popular sport. So football has been used as a tool for physical intervention for people that are mentally challenged. And this because it has been proved to work towards a progression of mental health and well-being by breaking isolation, by providing psychological safety, empowerment, and also giving the opportunity for people to feel this fun and the enjoyment and the promotion of their health, allowing also self-expression. So indeed, as I said, nothing can go wrong when we been engaged in physical activity, and let alone in team sports like football.
That's great to hear, Eleftheria. And in your experience, how would you describe the importance that actually coaches have when it comes to interacting with children and youth groups in football, and teachers and caretakers, caregivers, because it's important, obviously, to create a positive environment there, one that allows us all, whatever level of football we play, to feel like we're included and feel like we're safe, right? So what's the role of these people in grassroots football to make sure that the sport can indeed be a positive influence?
Exactly. You mentioned some very important words, safety, for example. So they all play a significant, a crucial role. They are the ones, parents, teachers, coaches, they're the ones that they provide, or at least they should provide the foundation for the emotional development of children and create, as you mentioned, this safety network around system. So they should assume the role of the safe and trusted adults, the ones that help children, recognize their capacities, improve their self-efficacy, and work towards them learning how to take care of their mental health. They should be the ones that children can reach out when they face a challenge or they have a concern without fear or judgment. There are important adult figures in the child's life. So it is also important to engage in a collaborative work, because working towards the promotion of the well-being of a young person is a shared responsibility among the adults that are around the young person, the young athlete. So it's not only on parents. And also, let me tell you that teachers and coaches, especially for young athletes, are the adults that after parents, they are a long time in interaction with the children. So they can assume also kind of the parenting role. And also they are the ones that they should link the young person with professional help when this is needed. So they play, and they should play, a crucial role. They have enormous power over the child. And if they create the safe environment, I reassure that the child can thrive, actually.
When you talk about, obviously, role models such as parents, coaches, teachers, there's no doubt that as the most popular sport on the planet, football creates those role models too, right? And there have been, throughout recent times, more and more players who are also addressing, professional players who are also addressing the topic of mental health. And that's incredibly important as well for that awareness that we were speaking about in the beginning. I wanted to ask you about the process of younger players maybe becoming professional and having some pressure that comes with that, also from trying to be perfect, living with criticism, a lot of this criticism coming from social media and the digital landscape. What are some of the tools that you can share that can maybe help the young players when they make that transition into having more pressure on them and having more attention on them to deal with that criticism, to deal with that judgment?
Actually, indeed, athletes experience stress and can experience stress from multiple sources, and especially being in the public eye can work both ways. So if someone receives positive messages, that's okay. But what happens if the team doesn't go so well and you start receiving some, thoughtless and cruel messages? And this tension is also compounded by the pressure of maintaining a positively, as you mentioned, perceived public image. It could be a really stressful situation. And the truth is that the majority of athletes do not externalize much their fear and their feelings about this. So they try to follow this mentality that athletes, and especially elite athletes or athletes that are talented, should be flawless. So there needs to be a shift from this mentality, and the coaches should be there actually to support the athletes from shifting from this mentality to and start opening up, stop talking and destigmatizing this issue of trying to be always flawless. So athletes that can communicate their feelings, they can cope better. So an open conversation with coaches, even with other supportive networks of family, friends, or the sports psychology can have a serious impact. So we need to shift the focus from what is unhelpful, for example, not buying everything of what comes with public criticism, and focus on what is helpful, because pressure, criticism is always going to be there. So we're not trying to control it, but to focus on what is most important and what I can control. And this is my skills, and this is the process, my training, my coach, my teammates. Also, if I want some kind of feedback on my performance, I should ask it as an athlete from people that they know, not from some random people on the internet. And always remember that, of course, the worth of an athlete and every person is not defined by online comments, but the pressure is there. It's natural part, especially as you mentioned, when someone moves from something grassroots to something more elite and professional. He or she always need to find a way to develop these mental skills so they can deal with the pressure. So pressure is our enemy. We need to learn to live with the pressure.
You mentioned the importance of communication, especially when a person starts feeling some kind of anxiety or depression. I wanted to ask you about the common mental disorders and when they should be identified, when they should be communicated, and how important an early detection is, right? Because one thing obviously is a fluctuation of moods and a fluctuation of disposition, but then there's, I imagine, a cycle where those moods become more negative more constantly. So in your opinion, when it comes to early detection and early communication of those feelings, what's the right timing, or what are some guidelines you can share?
Let me first start by shortly defining common mental disorders that refer to depressive and anxiety disorder, and that is distinct from the stress, the sadness, the fear that everyone might feel at some point in their life. And sometimes common mental disorders do not come with, over dramatic and very obvious symptoms, but they manifest in a subtle way. And that makes it more difficult to identify and to refer timely, accurate, and properly. But early detection and treatment can for sure have improve outcomes for the persons that are being challenged. So let me talk very shortly about some of the symptoms that they should alert us and when we should look out for professional help. Actually, the symptoms can range from changes in mood and energy levels to alteration in sleeping and eating patterns. People can experience low energy. They can experience psychosomatic symptoms, persistent sadness, feelings of guilty and worthlessness. They might have also some cognitive difficulties in functioning, memory loss, or difficult to concentrate. But when these symptoms are actually intervening and have a serious impact in our daily life, they are persistent and there seems not to be any progression. So they affect our lives in a way that we cannot no longer function, then it's time to seek out for support. But maybe we should not reach to that point. We should be able to identify the precursors, the red flags, and the signs beforehand. And that is why, because without early intervention, especially young people can become resistant to change. And they can be exposed for more time to difficult circumstances. So the earlier we interrupt maladaptive behaviors, the better the outcome will be. So when we start feeling concerned that something is not going well, or when we notice something to a person around us, for example, a coach notices that an athlete is struggling with something or has some changes, then we should also seek for support. So we don't have to wait to reach what we say the red line, but take one step back and ask for support earlier. So the earlier, the better.
I wanted to kind of start bringing it all together here, Eleftheria, with a lot of the topics we've discussed and some of the insight you've shared. And in the beginning, we were talking about a lot of the issues that maybe young people are facing today, whether it's isolation, whether it's dealing with digital media, whether it's a competitive environment. So taking into account some of these pressures and some of these conditions, what are some pieces of advice you can share for young people to be able to maintain a good mental health and be balanced?
There are a variety of strategies that young people can be engaged into for maintaining a good mental health condition. We have already touched upon some issues during our discussion. This might include prioritizing their physical rest and recovery, engaging in regular exercise, engaging with their peers, staying active and contribute to their communities. Setting achievable goals, doing something that is creative, taking care of their mind by engaging in breathing exercises or other mindful techniques. The most important is being connected and feeling the sense of belonging in their community. And also additionally, focusing on emotional literacy is very important for young people. So they should start learning and showing curiosity over their feelings so they can be able to identify, to manage properly, and also to seek for support when this is needed, when feeling overwhelmed. And don't forget that one major strategy for remaining in a good mental health place is to have fun and to enjoy. So being connected and developing this sense of feeling hope, respected, and also being able to project themselves positively in the future is very important for their mental health. But above all this, the umbrella is to feel safe. So if they feel safe and protected, then all the other things will come up kind of naturally.
Very, very important. And to close our conversation, I wanted to ask, because I think it's important to certain teachers that may be watching or listening, coaches, people who are involved with the youth. What are some common mistakes that maybe some adults are making when trying to offer support, and how can they navigate some of these sensitive conversations, right? Because if they're faced with an individual that maybe they can sense has mental health issues, there are many ways of approaching it, and I'm sure there are many right ways and there are many wrong ways. So, what kind of advice can you offer in that scope?
Okay, so the fact is that we all do mistakes, especially if raising young athletes or coaching young athletes or even teaching young athletes can often be thrilling but challenging as well. You know that the journey of sport is paved with many things, with victories and defeats. So usually the adults around the child put too much focus and attention on the physical perspective of sports. So they lose the bigger picture that they're managing a child, not only an athlete or a champion to be. So it's good to apply this holistic approach that sport is not there only to develop, you know, the physical aspect of the person, but they need to teach the child that everything on them is valued and should be, should be developed. And sometimes they have high expectations. Maybe their expectations do not respond to reality or do not respond to the capacities of the young person or even their developmental state. And, you know, if I have high expectations, then I add additional and unnecessary pressure for achievement. So we need to shift again the focus from competitiveness, from the outcome, the achievement, to the process. So we need to let the young athletes have fun and enjoy the sports, because fun and enjoyment is a fundamental for sports. And they need to value also the improvement, the effort, the teamwork. That's how they create all these mental health skills, set of skills that they will help them being more resilient. Also, sometimes the goals that are being set by the parents, the teachers, or the coaches are not the young athletes' goals and aspirations. Sometimes we relive our lives through young players, so we should actually include the young player into that and ask them which are their goals, what are their aspirations, not mine, for example. And as I said, do not overemphasize the results over the effort, and don't forget the fun element. But it's difficult. I mean, we need always to strike a balance.
Yeah, it's difficult, but it helps when we have the opportunity to speak with someone with your experience, with your expertise. And I think you've helped to shed the light on some of the issues that are there when it pertains to mental health, and some possible solutions, even though obviously I'm sure there is no right path and, you know, magic solution to every problem. But definitely it's good to talk about the issue like we've done, to raise awareness and to give some guidelines that can really be helpful for everyone who is watching this podcast. So thank you so much, Eleftheria, for joining us, for talking to us about the importance of connections, the importance of making social also relationships at the center of young people's lives, and also, of course, the importance of sport and the importance of football and the importance of being and staying active. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to wrap up another episode of the UEFA Take Care podcast, this one obviously dedicated to mental health. It was the third episode after we had previously focused on physical activity and nutrition. Stay tuned for another episode coming your way very soon.